Good morning, everyone. My name is David Butz. Ordinarily, at this time of a Sunday morning, I'd be down the road in Littleton with the UU congregation there. And I brought with me today two of my fellow congregants to help us with the music, Carolyn McCreary and Peter Ursland. Happy to be sharing with you on Earth Day. And I open with a brief quotation from one of the great scientific minds of the turn of the 20th century. Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less. Mania Sklodowska, known to us as Marie Curie. It is no secret that in this assembly of religiously liberal folks, the majority is also generally progressive. So to the progressive congregant, specifically the progressive environmentalist, thinking about the environment. Consider first how we think, or more to the point, how we think we think. None of us is omniscient, yet it is in our nature and from our need for survival that we are compelled to know things. As a result, we form the best hypotheses we can to build a worldview and inform our actions. We each weave a web of information and opinions, some shakier than others, differing person to person. Sometimes we get into trouble when we do this. Popular certainties, imagined reality, fear, anger, cherished enemies, seductive traps. It is easy for us to observe resulting errors in thinking in certain quarters. Denial of science amongst currently powerful office holders is astounding, especially in a country that has nurtured basic research and the advancement of technology and medicine. Blind fealty to capitalism, capital C, without acknowledging its limitations and inherent dangers, is just plain simple-minded. The pernicious thing is that once adopted, these certainties are no longer objects of rational thought. They become articles of faith, no longer open to question. We, intelligent and self-satisfied progressives, find it easy to dismiss such thinking for its manifest ignorance. However, a rational understanding of this behavior should lead us naturally to some self-examination. If our uninformed brothers and sisters come to these erroneous conclusions unknowingly, it is more than likely that we progressives sometimes do the same thing in the same way. If the radical right nourishes irrational fears, favorite whipping boys, and cliche salvations, from time to time, so do we progressives. Today, consider how we fall prey to these tendencies when it comes to our fervent environmentalism, today's energy and CO2 crisis, and our love affair with wind and solar. These days, we speak earnestly about climate change and global warming, driven by an enormous volume of CO2 production. Even before we consider global warming, even if global warming were not a threat, the CO2 certainly is, even without knowing what it might do. We are significantly changing the delicate balance of the atmosphere to which evolution and geology have subtly adapted. Before we even know what the damage may turn out to be, we can see the danger. Ocean acidification, another excess CO2 effect threatening all sea life, may actually be a more immediate threat than global warming, but it's seldom discussed. We have a tendency to latch on to a dramatic drowning cities doomsday narrative while we leapfrog deliberate concern and strategy into a state of panic. Granting that we do have a crisis, whatever we call it, what should we do? Two big questions. First, can we make a significant impact through energy conservation? Second, What forms of energy should we use to replace fossil fuels? Start with conservation. Various carbon footprint groups are active today in our UU churches. As we do this work, we are decreasing our energy usage and carbon footprint while saving money. This is a good thing. Compared to Western Europeans who share a similar standard of living, we Americans use almost double the energy per person. So these efforts are obviously worthwhile here. But this does not apply to the majority of the Earth's population who are starved for energy. 10 times the US population uses under 85 watts of electricity per person, while we use 1,500. Increased energy usage over the centuries has helped lead to better living standards, the elimination of slave labor, and dramatically the emancipation of women and an attendant lowering of the birth rate. Being stewards of our environment is one moral imperative. Relieving misery, poverty, and overpopulation is also an imperative. To accomplish this, we will need to provide vastly more energy to the world's population than we do now. If the world as a whole used energy at half our rate, it would need to more than double its current production. Conservation in rich societies is working at the margins and virtually irrelevant in solving the planet's energy and CO2 crisis. If it doesn't degenerate into gratuitous self-denial, conservation is a good thing, a moral thing, but it's not the solution to this problem. In fact, it's a queer thing for the progressive to become obsessed with capping our energy usage. A great part of our progressive human spirit is invested in creative improvements to our shared well-being and exploration of the unknown. Energy is the currency of these endeavors. Moving on then, what replaces coal and oil? Before considering some details, I pause with a simple assertion. We have to do the math. If we see a scattered family of sleek wind turbines on the Iowa prairie and know that they are tapping a free source while producing no CO2, we fall in love. What a wonderful way to go. Renewable, green, let's do that. But can this mode of energy production, combined with others like solar, meet the needs, solve the energy crisis? We have to do the math. I am an old duck environmentalist. Rachel Carson galvanized my thinking at an early age. As an 80-year-old engineer who has been thinking about the future of energy production since he was a teenager, back then fusion was going to save the day, I have spent many hours looking at the menu of options, everything from tidal power to wind harvesting methods, always sobered by technical feasibility and the immensity of the task. This has led me to two conclusions, each of which may sound a bit shocking to some. Conclusion one, as primary actors, wind and solar do not have a ghost of a chance to solve the problem on their own. We now consume globally an equivalent of 4 cubic miles of oil every year, coal, oil, gas, and equivalent, 20 terawatt years on the way to doubling by 2050. Solar and wind are on a steep growth curve, but from where to where? Even with its recent rapid growth, the contribution is still marginal, with serious limits to its ultimate potential and a host of intrinsic deficiencies. Wind and solar may help in a time of transition, but they can't really carry the load. Although they can contribute to electricity production, usually requiring natural gas backup, they can't even play in the huge sectors of heavy transportation and industrial heat, for example. These harvests do have several fine applications. A small field of solar panels may revolutionize the life of a farmer in Senegal who can employ the energy to irrigate her small field for the first time. If you can go off the grid by erecting a wind turbine in your backyard, hooray. I've thought of doing it myself. But that option isn't remotely relevant to the residents of New York City, Los Angeles, and Mumbai. If you can harvest solar energy from your south-facing rooftop and amortize the expense, go for it. But if only a minority of rooftops are suitable and subsidies required, that isn't even close to a solution to the global energy problem. If we attempt to meet our growing energy need using primarily weak and erratic wind and solar, we will be perpetrating an environmental disaster through the use of gigatons of precious material and millions of acres of the Earth's surface. Concrete, steel, polymer, copper, lithium, heavy metals, caustic chemicals, and an ultimate disposal problem of gargantuan proportions. This is not the way to solve the problem. Much of the current belief in salvation from wind and solar has grown from a popular roadmap to an all-renewable U.S. energy portfolio authored by Professor Mark Jacobson. But if you do the math, it's wishful thinking. A careful analysis has shown that this erudite fantasy calls for 500,000 5-megawatt turbines, 18 billion square meters of solar panels, 50,000 wind and solar farms, impossible storage schemes, and this is a killer, based on a generous 40-year lifetime, the replacement of over 1 million square meters of solar panels every day forever. All of this at a cost of $15 to $23 trillion, which is greater than our GDP. This doesn't make sense. Some of you may be thinking that this is really opinionated and inappropriate commentary to come from the pulpit. However, nothing is more important in our UU congregations than discussing our moral responsibilities to others and the earth. Consider one of our cherished principles, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. If we are going to give more than lip service to this ideal, we have to go beyond fanciful dreams to hard-headed reality. If this summary evaluation is correct, why then have so many of us come to believe that the answer to the energy crisis lies in the area of so-called renewables? There are several reasons. It's natural. It's green. It's almost romantic. But is it just possible that this has become a religion? Think about it. Well, if not renewables, then what? If there is nothing else, Nigeria will burn coal, which leads to conclusion 2. We have in our immediate grasp a mode of energy production that can eliminate the burning of fossil fuels, produce no CO2, and meet most of the Earth's energy demand, even throwing desalination of water and synthesis of liquid fuels into the bargain. That solution is nuclear. Now some of you are thinking that your brother has really lost his mind. I beg you to suspend your disbelief for a moment. I was like many, most of you, anti-nuclear for a good while, concerned about long-lived radioactive waste and other risks. In time, on closer evaluation, I realized that these matters can be, and generally are, handled in a robust and straightforward manner. The radioactivity safety concern is way overblown in popular consciousness and readily addressed. We live in a sea of radiation. You are receiving it now from the ground and the sky. A banana is radioactive, and so are you. Terrestrial biology has evolved to deal with this easily. The only time one is harmed by radiation is when receiving way too much of it in a short period of time. A person is in greater danger working in a grain elevator on the prairie than working in a nuclear power plant. You are in greater danger from gasoline and Clorox. Significant release of threatening radioisotopes to the public from power production has happened once in 70 years, from Chernobyl. Also, nuclear waste, which is mostly not waste, actually gives us, surprisingly, a powerful argument for nuclear. Nuclear is the only method that sequesters all of its afterproduct, and the volume is tiny. Nuclear waste is not a supernatural being about to grab you by the ankle. It's just physical material that can be physically secured. On my own journey of discovery, having long known that renewables fail an essential criterion of compactness or energy density, I have followed, hopefully, the progress toward nuclear fusion, a likely but still elusive goal. We need something now. Nuclear fission is here today, as it has been for more than 60 years. The technology has been refined for safety and efficiency over the decades, with dramatic new tech and reactor types now on the horizon. Visualize a common meeting room for a moment, 30 feet square, 12 feet high. If your American lifetime energy needs were met with coal, you would need to fill that room to the ceiling twice. If met through nuclear fission, you could hold the fuel in one hand. This is not a potential to be flippantly rejected because we're too scared. It's a gift from the stars. There are over 440 large reactors in the world today, over 90 in the US, producing a fifth of our electricity, and the French safely produce most of their electricity this way. Recycling fuel, vitrifying a tiny waste stream, and creating the cleanest air in Europe, while Germany has gone backwards with its green elimination of nuclear, which has forced them to burn more coal. The world is generously served by its legacy reactors. Today, there are also new and important alternative ways of doing nuclear, Generation 4 and small modular reactors. I'll mention just one of them as an example. It was successfully tested 50 years ago at our Oak Ridge National Laboratory, something called a molten salt reactor. This demonstrated a simple, compact, economical, walk-away safe option for harvesting nuclear energy. It had zero danger of hydrogen explosion, steam explosion, or meltdown. Zero. That Oak Ridge reactor ran without a problem for almost 5 years until the end of testing. Leading physicists, some Nobel laureates, saw it as the future of energy production. But the effort was abandoned at that time for a variety of historical and political reasons. A future home-run version of this technology could internally convert non-fissile thorium into uranium fuel. If this were a reality, we could power the world from certain varieties of beach sand. This little golf ball of thorium would supply all your energy needs for a lifetime and cost about $100. This one's lead, made about the same density. Based on our work, the Chinese are now running a prototype molten salt reactor while we, its inventors, slowly move toward re-engagement. There are several significant efforts underway here and strong bipartisan support from our federal government, but public fear is still a strong headwind for these endeavors. Maybe you have processed 3 Mile Island, the China Syndrome, Chernobyl, and Fukushima in such a way that you will not even think about this. Maybe you picketed at Seabrook or Vermont Yankee. But maybe the mythology about all of this is just that, resting on a flimsy foundation of oversimplification and fueled by disproportionate fear. We fear nuclear because it's as sneaky and invisible as the monster under the bed. Yet everyday industrial chemistry presents a far greater hazard. Remember Bhopal? That terrible disaster dwarfs any nuclear accident in history, including Chernobyl. We'll live with it, though, because we can smell chlorine and vinyl monomer. We can't smell a gamma ray. Speaking of nuclear accidents, thoroughgoing changes after 3 Mile Island ensure that such a scenario will never recur here. In Fukushima, the tsunami itself was the deadly disaster. Released radiation was actually minimal and non-deadly. Chernobyl, tragic as it was, and it was, doesn't even count as a summary indictment of the nuclear industry. It was a faulty design being recklessly operated with no containment structure. It was illegal at the time to build such a reactor in the U.S., and no one will build one again. One other fear. Nuclear energy generation is often conflated with nuclear weapons. Just to clarify, it is physically impossible for a conventional nuclear power plant to produce a nuclear explosion. The fuel is not close to a required level of enrichment, and there is no available mechanism for instantaneously compressing a fissile mass to the required density. Let us be reasonable. The manufacture of chemicals, airliners, and drugs, the processing of foods, all have serious dangers associated with them. But generally speaking, we manage these dangers thoughtfully and effectively, just as we can manage the dangers associated with nuclear energy. Return to where we began today, the careful construction of our cherished certainties and our favorite dartboards. If right-wing ignorance and irrational fear of soft-headed liberals contribute to today's cartoonish memes about evil Democrats, is it not possible that we progressives have also created and honored our own false demons? Thoughtful, often younger environmentalists have been looking at this with new eyes. At one conference, I heard two young women speak with enthusiasm about their founding of Mothers for Nuclear. We old-timers have a synapse or two left, too. Many of you know the work of Stuart Brand, creator of the wonderful Whole Earth Catalog. Like many of us, he was striving forward in the 60s and 70s with a crunchy granola, smaller is better, anti-establishment, chickens in your backyard agenda. But he has not lost his capacity to think and to reconsider. A few years ago, he summarized this reconsideration with the following question. In light of climate change, can you be an environmentalist and not be pro-nuclear? That is a strong challenge. The dense potential of nuclear energy can be readily harvested in our efforts to end pollution and alleviate poverty. The big roadblock is not technology, but fear. I dream that we progressives will overcome our fear and stand in the vanguard. Amen. Thank you.